The Allagash incident, which happened in Maine in 1976, sits somewhere between cinematic spectacle and a camping trip that went awkwardly, disturbingly off script. And 4 young art students decided a 2-week canoe trip would be an ideal way to celebrate youth and freedom. Their names were Jack, Jim, Chuck, and Charlie.
A couple of guys camping, fishing, and we were excited about getting out of the city and being in the wilderness, going somewhere where we'd never been, getting some fishing done, paddling canoes.
Easygoing and competent outdoorsmen, they paddled into a story that began like a pleasant campfire tale and accumulated layers of mystery, doubt, and debate, like a marshmallow that kept getting more charred with each telling.
Jack and Jim Weeder were all art students together in Boston.
The last thing on our minds was any UFOs or anything like that. We just wanted to go fishing. It was very, very dark. So we decided to build a fire so we could find our way back to our campsite.
Their trip was the kind of outing people choose when they want the trappings of ruggedness while remaining relatively civilized. They plotted a route, packed carefully, and set a respectable fire on Eagle Lake. On the night everything changed, they were fishing, swapping small confidences, and possibly arguing about art when a bright, insistent light appeared in the sky. It did not behave like a star or an ordinary airplane.
In that? Yeah, been getting brighter the last minute.
The light was intense, and it shifted through colors in a way that seemed almost deliberate, cycling from a whitish yellow to a greenish blue and back again, like something experimenting with its palette.
We were out there for approximately 15 or 20 minutes fishing with no luck. And suddenly Chuck Rack said, "Hey guys, that's a heck of a case of swamp gas." And we turned around, and probably 150, maybe 200 yards away at the most, coming out of the trees was this huge ball of glowing, pulsating light.
At first, they guessed natural or mundane explanations. A plane, a distant searchlight, or maybe a balloon of some sort. One of the men, acting on a reflex from old movies or simple politeness, flashed his flashlight as if to say hello. The light moved. It traversed the lake with a purposeful, close approach and hovered where they could see it clearly. As it drew near, the men reported a sudden, overwhelming heat. Then the narrative jumps. In a disorienting moment, they found themselves not hovering in some metal corridor.
Moving towards us. The next thing I remembered was seeing the beam coming right towards the back of the canoe. And at that point, we started paddling very quickly towards the shore. As I was paddling, I was looking over my shoulder to see where this object was in relation to our canoe. And it kept just following us, coming closer and closer and closer. I was in a panic, to be honest with you. A second later, it was right on, almost on top of us, with this beam coming across the water right towards our canoe. And I remember thinking, well, we're not going to outrun this thing. There's no way we're going to outrun this thing. And then the next thing I remembered was standing on the beach.
Back on the shoreline beside the cooling remains of their fire. Time had slipped, or their memory of it had. They were tired, confused, and unsure how much time had passed while they had been somewhere else. Consider trying to explain that at a later dinner table. Reactions would range from immediate skepticism to genuine alarm. Strange as it sounds, the men did not rush to press charges or call news outlets. They continued on their trip, which suggests either a kind of stoic composure or an inclination to treat the episode privately until its meaning could be assessed. The story lay quiet for several years until 2 of the men, Jack and Jim, began suffering strikingly similar nightmares. Their dreams featured tall, long-necked, large-headed figures conducting examinations that resembled clinical checkups. But these shared nightmares motivated the brothers to seek answers. They attended a UFO conference and met a researcher who suggested hypnosis as a method to recover forgotten or repressed memories. Hypnosis is controversial. It has legitimate therapeutic uses, but it also carries risks because suggestible states can introduce confabulations or constructed details.
I'm not going in there. No way. Just leave me alone. I don't believe it.
The implications, according to a report by Brookings Institute, could shatter the very foundations of not only philosophy and religion, but even science.
With that warning, All 4 men underwent hypnotic regressions separately and reported very similar accounts. Under hypnosis, they described being taken aboard a craft, examined in ways that felt clinical, and encountering beings who communicated telepathically rather than by speech. The accounts were similar enough to capture widespread attention, especially among those who delight in mysteries and phenomena that resist easy explanation. The Allagash case earned notoriety not just for narrative similarity, but also because it involved 4 witnesses, which is less common than single witness stories. Another odd detail involved the fire. The men reported that a blaze they had left burning should have lasted for hours, but was found quickly reduced to embers. Whether this was missing time, a lapse in perception, or simply the behavior of a fire under damp conditions is debated, and that debate opens up several plausible interpretations. Skeptics were quick and methodical. They focused on the central role of hypnosis, noting how easily memory can be shaped in regression setting.
Had no idea where I was. Then I realized that the 3 guys were sitting to my left on this bench, naked. All I knew is I was in a strange place, laying naked, paralyzed, with this thing coming towards me.
Creatures that I remembered, they reminded me of bugs.
No eyelids, they didn't blink.
I remember these creatures examining my brother with a type of wand, is what it appeared to me as. It was a long, thin instrument, maybe the diameter of a pencil, a little over a foot long, with a bulbous end on it.
Highlighted the temporal gap between the incident and public disclosure, and they pointed out the benefit the men later received from publicity and lecture circuits. When stories lead to attention or income, it invites questions about motive, conscious or otherwise. More prosaic explanations exist. Sleep paralysis, for example, can induce powerful hallucinations, a feeling of immobility, and the sensation of an external presence. Memory reconstruction is slippery. Human brains are excellent pattern detectors and poor recorders. Cultural context matters, too. The 1970s were a time of high interest in science fiction and extraterrestrial life, which provided a rich interpretive framework for unusual experiences. When a culture expects the extraordinary, ambiguities are more likely to be interpreted as the extraordinary. Physical corroboration was lacking. No wreckage attributed to an unknown craft was ever found, and no recorded electromagnetic anomalies were tied to the event in any definitive way. Absence of physical evidence does not necessarily prove a story false, but it complicates efforts to move the claim from anecdote to verifiable event. Investigations prefer tangible artifacts to examine, measures to compare, and data to analyze. Personal narratives remain harder to validate because they live in memory and in the process of retelling. Even so, the Allagash story retains adherence. 4 witnesses with parallel recollections have undeniable narrative force. The psychological distress some reported afterward lends gravity to their accounts. The nightmares, the consistency of certain details across tellings, and the decision to speak publicly contributed to the story's persistence in UFO circles and among curious lay audiences.
Examinations, reviewing the charts in detail. After talking with both of the brothers, there is absolutely, positively no doubt in my mind that they are being absolutely honest with me when they tell me that they were confronted by a phenomena in the Allagash region.
One person might fool a polygraph examiner, but you have 4 all passing the tests, and the polygraph examiner being convinced that all 4 are telling the truth is very important.
After the polygraph examination, the 4 friends felt vindicated. The truth of their experience had been recorded. Chuck Rack and Charlie Foltz moved on. They are trying to put the experience behind them.
Whether you approach the case as a serious mystery or as a cautionary example of memory's malleability, it is undeniably compelling. Human psychology helps explain why the narrative endures. People seek shared stories because stories build social cohesion. Communal narratives bind groups and provide frameworks for understanding unusual events. The Allagash incident is a concentrated example of how an ambiguous, emotionally charged event can be interpreted, rehearsed, and amplified into a cultural touchstone. The mix of sensory detail, a cinematic natural setting, and unresolved questions makes it particularly sticky in the public imagination. The men at the center of the story responded the way many people might. They sought explanations, told their story in public and private, and submitted themselves to scrutiny. Some embraced a role within UFO communities, speaking at conferences and engaging with investigators. Others stepped back into private life. Public reaction ranged across a predictable spectrum, from earnest belief to tough skepticism. That range reflects broader human habits. When ordinary frameworks fail, we test new stories against the old and debate which best fits the data and the feelings. If your appetite is for certainty, the Allagash case will likely frustrate you. There is no incontrovertible physical trace, and the memories retrieved under hypnosis are disputed. If you want a rich, atmospheric narrative that resists simple resolution, the episode delivers abundantly. It provides setting, characters, sensory detail, and a stubborn ambiguity that keeps conversations alive decades later, from kitchen tables to podcast forums. Maine as backdrop intensifies the tale. The state's dense forests can feel like they hold secrets. Its lakes reflect shapes that play tricks on perception, and quiet nights invite introspection and a readiness to imagine. 4 art students in a canoe on a dark lake are, in story terms, perfect protagonists for a mystery with no neat conclusion. Ultimately, the Allagash encounter is less a closed case than a study in how humans construct meaning from unusual events. It prompts questions about memory, community, and how to balance open curiosity with critical thinking. Whether you interpret what happened as a genuine visitation, a psychological episode, a shared hallucination, or a complex mix of causes, the story clings to the imagination. If you ever find yourself alone on a silent lake at night, consider this. Sometimes lights in the sky are harmless, sometimes they are puzzles science can solve, and sometimes they are precisely the odd, insistent prompts that fuel late-night discussions and long-running debates. And if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to Richard Barron Horror.